All right, so today we're going to try something a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive into a fictional world.
okay.
You've provided me with some excerpts from The Immortals of Meluha by Amish Tripathi.
Sounds interesting.
It is. It's a fantasy novel, and it takes place in this incredible world called Meluha.
So we're not just talking about the plot or characters.
Right. We're going to explore the world itself. The society, the technology, the conflicts that are bubbling under the surface.
I like it. It's like taking a magnifying glass to a whole civilization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Meluha is particularly fascinating because at first glance, it seems like a utopia.
Ah, I see. The classic things are not what they seem trope.
Yeah, there's definitely more than meets the eye. But before we get into all that,
Sure.
let's start with the basics. What's Meluha actually like?
Well, imagine this, the year is 1900 BC.
Okay.
But forget everything you think you know about that era.
Uh-huh.
We're talking advanced civilization here, like way ahead of its time.
Okay.
Think perfectly planned cities infrastructure that would put modern cities to shame.
Wow.
And there's this huge emphasis on cleanliness and order. It's almost unnerving.
So it's like a super organized society.
Extremely. And then you've got the Samras.
What?
The Samras. It's this mysterious drink that grants long life and healing.
Seriously?
Seriously. It's a big deal in Meluha.
Well, sign me up. Where can I get some of that?
Not so fast. There's a catch.
There's always a catch, right?
Right. Meluha might seem perfect on the surface, but
Good.
their society is incredibly rigid. It's all about structure and control.
In what way?
Well, for one, they have this strict caste system.
Like social hierarchy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone has their predetermined role based on their caste.
Mm-hmm.
And there are specific symbols for each caste. It's all very meticulously categorized.
So there's not a lot of room for individuality.
Not really.
Hmm.
It's all about duty and conformity to the greater good.
That makes me think about societies throughout history that have had these rigid class systems.
Oh, absolutely. You see parallels everywhere. Even in modern times, people are still judged and categorized
Yeah.
based on certain attributes.
It makes you wonder, is a perfect society even possible? And what's the cost of that perfection?
Those are exactly the questions that the Immortals of Meluha explores. And it gets even more complicated when you bring the Chandravanshis into the picture.
Okay, who are the Chandravanshis?
They're basically the Meluhans' sworn enemies, or at least that's how the Meluhans see them.
So there's conflict.
Oh, yeah. It's a clash of ideologies.
Yeah.
The Rimavanshis who rule Meluha, they're all about duty, honor, and order.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the Chandravanshis are depicted as more individualistic, passionate, almost chaotic.
It's like two completely different ways of life butting heads.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And into this charged atmosphere walks our protagonist, Shiva.
Shiva, who's he?
He's a tribal leader from the land of the Gonis.
Mhm.
He gets invited to Meluha, which seems pretty straightforward at first.
Okay.
Because you realize that Shiva has a blue throat.
A blue throat. How does that change things?
Well, the Meluhans have this ancient prophecy about the Neelkanth.
The Neelkanths.
It means blue-throated.
Yeah.
And he's this savior destined to destroy evil. So Shiva's arrival with his distinctive blue throat, it throws everything into chaos. People start to believe that he might be the Neelkanth.
I can imagine that would cause quite a stir.
It does.
Yeah.
It puts Shiva in this really difficult position. He's suddenly at the center of everyone's hopes and fears.
And is he on board with all of this? Being hailed as a potential savior?
Not really. He's actually pretty skeptical at first, even terrified. He doubts he's capable of living up to such a huge prophecy.
It makes sense. It's a lot of pressure to put on one person.
It is.
Mm.
And it raises some interesting questions about the nature of destiny and free will.
So we've got this seemingly perfect society with the dark side.
Yeah.
We've got this ancient prophecy and a reluctant hero who's caught in the middle of it all.
Exactly.
What happens next? Okay, so we've got this conflict brewing between the Suryavanshis and the Chandravanshis,
Yeah.
but it's more than just like a political clash, right?
Right. It goes deeper than that.
We were talking about these different values they represent. It's almost
A
like,
clash of civilizations. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And woven into all of this is this mysterious Samras.
It's not just some magical elixir either.
No.
It plays a central role in Meluha's power structure and even their survival.
Okay, remind me, what's the big deal with the Samras again?
Well, remember how Shiva and his tribe got sick when they first arrived in Meluha?
Oh, yeah.
That was the Samras. It's incredibly potent.
Potent how?
It can be really dangerous for
Yeah.
people who aren't used to it.
So wait, this drink that grants long life can also make you sick?
It's a double-edged sword.
How does that even work?
It has to do with oxygen.
Oxygen.
Yeah, the Samras somehow reacts with the oxygen in your body and pretty much eliminates oxidants.
Oxidants. Those are the things that cause aging, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
That's how the Meluhans achieve their extended lifespans, but
No.
also makes them vulnerable.
Vulnerable how?
Well, for example, the air in Shiva's homeland.
Okay.
It's implied that the thinner air with its higher oxygen content is actually toxic to the Meluhans.
Oh, wow.
And that explains why Shiva, who was adapted to that environment, he developed a blue throat after drinking the Samras.
So it's like his body reacted differently.
Precisely.
That's fascinating. So
Yeah.
this drink has amazing benefits, but it comes with serious risks.
Definitely.
Where do the Chandravanshis fit into all of this?
Well, they don't have access to the Samras.
It's a Meluhan secret.
Exactly. And the Chandravanshis, they believe that Meluha's power and prosperity, it all comes from this elixir.
They see it as an unfair advantage.
Absolutely. They feel like the Meluhans are hoarding this incredible resource.
So it's like a resource war, kind of like how countries fight over oil today.
Yeah, except this time it's a drink of immortality.
Okay, so what do the Chandravanshis do about it?
Well, they decide to target the source of the Samras, the Saraswati River. One of the key ingredients comes from this river,
Oh, okay.
and the Chandravanshis try to poison it.
Wow, that's a bold move.
It is. It's a direct attack on Meluha's very existence.
So I'm guessing the Meluhans don't take this lying down.
Not at all. Poisoning the Saraswati is seen as a declaration of war,
Makes sense.
and it really fuels the flames of the conflict. It pushes the Suryavanshis towards a full-blown war.
But we know that Shiva isn't so quick to demonize the Chandravanshis.
Right? He's spent time in Ayodhya,
Yeah.
and he's seen how they live. It's made him question this whole good versus evil narrative,
Uh-huh. And then there's the attack on Mount Mandar.
a key location for Samras production.
Yeah, we learned that it wasn't actually the Chandravanshi army that carried out that attack.
Right.
So who was it?
It was a group called the Nagas.
Chanagas. Okay, who are they?
They're this mysterious and feared group.
Like shadowy figures.
Exactly. They're often associated with darkness and evil.
So are they working with the Chandravanshis?
It's not entirely clear.
What do you mean?
Well, the Meluhans assume they're allied with the Chandravanshis,
Right.
but the novel hints that the Nagas might have their own agenda.
Oh, so they could be playing both sides.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely adding another layer of complexity to this whole conflict.
Okay, so we've got these warring factions, a mysterious elixir, and now these shadowy Nagas lurking in the background.
It's getting pretty intense.
It is. What happens to Shiva in the middle of all this?
Well, he faces a major turning point when he discovers a devastating truth about the attack on Mount Mandar.
What truth?
His friend and mentor, Brahaspati,
Yeah.
he was killed by a Naga.
Oh, wow. That must have been a huge blow to Shiva.
It was. He was already questioning the war, and now he's dealing with this personal loss.
It's like his world is falling apart.
In a way, he's consumed by grief and rage.
Mm.
He vows to avenge Brahaspati's death.
I can understand that, but it also sounds like it's pushing him further down a path he's not sure about.
Yeah, he's torn between duty and his conscience.
He feels obligated to fight for Meluha, but his experiences with the Chandravanshis and now this personal tragedy,
It's making him question everything.
he's trapped in this cycle of violence.
And what about Sati?
Yeah, where does she fit into all of this?
Well, their love for each other deepens. But it's complicated.
Of course it is. This is the Immortals of Meluha we're talking about.
Right. They're different backgrounds. The fact that she's a Vakarma, this looming war.
It's creating this constant tension.
Exactly. They're kind of like star-crossed lovers.
Their connection defies societal norms, but everything around them seems determined to tear them apart.
It's a classic setup.
So as this war heats up, what kind of choices does Shiva face?
He's got some impossible decisions to make, ones that will determine not just his own fate, but the destiny of Meluha and possibly all of India.
Ooh, that sounds intense. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
I know, right?
Does Shiva give in to the pull of war? What happens to his relationship with Sati? And what about the prophecy? Does he finally embrace his role as the Neelkanth? Okay, so last we left off, Shiva was facing these massive decisions with Meluha's fate hanging in the balance.
Yeah.
But it's not just like a political game, right?
Oh, no, definitely not.
We're talking about real people, with emotions and relationships.
Exactly. And the novel does a great job of showing that human side of things.
Yeah.
Like, we see Shiva struggling with his doubts, his sense of duty, his love for Sati, and
Yeah.
all the sacrifices that are happening on both sides of this conflict.
It reminds us that even in these huge epic stories,
Yeah.
It's the individual stories that really get to us.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the war itself.
Yeah.
Shiva's army is going up against these Chandravanshi forces,
Right.
but they're outnumbered and their usual tech advantage is gone.
Yeah, because the Chandravanshis destroyed all the roads leading to Swadweep.
Oh, right. So the Meluhans can't bring in their war machines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've basically been cut off at the knees.
So what does Shiva do?
Well, he realizes that brute force isn't going to work this time.
Uh-huh.
So he has to come up with something else, something clever.
So what does he do?
He uses the Meluhans' superior archery skills
Okay.
and their discipline to create this formation called a human ram.
A human ram. What's that?
It's basically this tight formation of soldiers all protecting each other with their shields.
Ah,
They become this unstoppable force just plowing through enemy lines.
that sounds intense, but they're still facing a huge disadvantage in numbers.
True.
How do they overcome that?
Shiva makes a really bold decision.
What does he do?
He allows the Vikarma soldiers to fight.
The Vikarmas, but they were forbidden from serving in the army.
Exactly.
So he's going against tradition.
He is. He recognizes the strength and skill of these Vikarma warriors.
I see.
And he gives them a chance to prove themselves.
So he's not just making a strategic move.
Right? It's also a symbolic gesture.
It's about challenging prejudice and recognizing hidden potential.
Absolutely.
So does it work?
It does. The Vikarmas fight with incredible ferocity.
They want to prove themselves.
Exactly. And their inclusion in the army helps secure a Meluhan victory.
But I imagine it's a bittersweet victory.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of lives are lost on both sides.
Then Shiva's been through so much.
He has. The novel doesn't shy away from showing the brutality of war.
Yeah.
We see the toll it takes on everyone involved, both physically and emotionally.
And then there's that moment when Sati gets injured.
Oh yeah, when she's shot by that Naga arrow.
It's such a tense moment.
It really raises the stakes.
It shows how vulnerable even the strongest warriors can be.
Especially when love is involved.
We see Shiva's love for Sati so clearly in that moment.
He's desperate. He blames himself.
Yeah.
It's a side of him we haven't seen much before.
It shows his vulnerability.
Right. Even a warrior who seems larger than life can be hurt and experience loss.
Yeah. Love can be both a strength and a weakness.
Definitely.
So the war is won, but at a great cost.
Right.
What happens next? Does Meluha find peace?
Well, not exactly. Victory brings its own challenges.
Oh, like what?
Well, Shiva has to decide what to do with Dilipa the Chandravanshi emperor.
This is where his inner conflict really comes to a head.
Yeah, throughout the story, his view of the Chandravanshis has been changing.
He doesn't see them as pure evil anymore.
Right, but he's still bound by his duty to Meluha.
So what does he do?
This is where we see him step into a new role.
Not just a warrior.
Right, he's becoming a leader.
Trying to find that balance between justice and mercy.
Exactly. He even stands up to his own father-in-law, who wants to punish the Chandravanshis harshly.
He's defining what leadership means to him, even if it means going against expectations.
And that leads him back to Ayodhya.
But this time he's not going as a conqueror.
No, he's seeking answers
He wants to understand the Chandravanshis better.
and reconcile with his own actions.
He's looking for a way forward that doesn't involve more bloodshed.
And that's when he has that amazing conversation with the Pandit at the Ramjanmabhoomi temple.
Their conversation is so thought-provoking.
It is the Pandit who we now know is a Vasudev.
Right.
He shares a truth that really shakes Shiva's world.
What truth?
He tells Shiva that there have been many destroyers of evil throughout history,
Okay.
and that even the most revered figures have made mistakes.
So no one is perfect.
Exactly. Not even the Nilkanth.
That's a powerful message.
It is. And the Pandit assures Shiva that he's not solely responsible for the consequences of the war.
It's about recognizing the shades of gray in a world that often seems black and white.
Absolutely.
So it's a message about forgiveness.
Of oneself and of others.
It's so relevant today.
It is. We live in a world where it's easy to judge and hard to see things from other perspectives.
So after this deep dive into the Immortals of Meluha,
Yeah.
what can we, the listeners, take away from Shiva's journey?
Well, this story gives us so much to think about.
Yeah.
The dangers of blind faith, the complexities of war and peace,
Yeah.
the importance of questioning our assumptions, and the power of forgiveness.
It reminds us that there are always multiple sides to every story.
And that true leadership isn't about power.
Yeah.
It's about compassion, understanding, and making tough choices, even when it's hard.
So it's a story that makes us think about our own beliefs,
Yeah.
our relationships, and how we handle conflict in our own lives.
It's not just a fantasy. It's a reflection of the human experience.
And it leaves us with this question. Can we ever achieve true purity in a world where everyone has their own idea of what's good and evil?
It's a question that's been around for centuries.
And it still challenges us today.
It does. But exploring these complex ideas through stories like the Immortals of Meluha,
Yeah.
it can help us grapple with them and maybe even find our own path towards a better world.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Meluha.
Yeah.
We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
It did.
And until next time, fellow deep divers, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for the truth wherever it may lead.